I wanted to bring you on to handicap the goaltending. So I don't know if you caught that. We had Joseph Woll on the show yesterday. Very bright kid, an American kid, obviously had a very, very amazing finish to the season. Great AHL campaign that ends up being the #1 goaltender for the Leafs in an elimination game in the Stanley Cup playoffs. As things situate right now, Marty, in between the pipes, assuming they do something with Matt Murray, how would you feel of a tandem of Joseph Woll and Ilya Samsonov?
I would be comfortable. Listen, I think Ilya Samsonov was really good this year. He and Matt Murray had their moments, right? So, Murray is hurt. Samsonov takes it. Samsonov missed. Murray plays a little bit, but we can all agree that the right thing to do with the Leafs and Matt Murray is probably to buy him out and to move on. So that leaves you with Samsonov, who's an RFA, needs a new contract, and Joseph Woll. I think Joseph Woll has a ton of potential. He can play an athletic game. He's got size. He's got strong structure. And I almost feel that what we saw Woll at the NHL level, he was better than what I saw him at the AHL, even though he's really good at the AHL level. But there's, such a thing that when you go from the AHL to the NHL, the shots are better, the quality of passes are better, but there's not a lot of unexpected things. There's not a lot of mistakes that you may see at the AHL level, missed coverage and all. And sometimes, goalies at the AHL level, you don't see their full potential until they get a chance at the NHL level. And sometimes it's the other way around. Like a guy at the AHL level can be a stud, maybe don't get anything done in the NHL. So it could be a change. But Joseph Woll, when he was with the Leafs, played in the regular season, played in the playoffs, he was really good. So then it becomes what is Samsonov going to get and what are you going to pay him? Is he a $5 million goalie? Is he a $4 million goalie? Are you comfortable with that? Would you rather go out and acquire maybe somebody else through free agency or trade? Because it's going to be a crazy summer, in my opinion, with the goalie carousel. So I would be comfortable with Samsonov and Woll, but you still have to sign Ilya Samsonov, which would make it a little bit more complicated.
And those are the two things that are eating away at this market, I think, in general, is how much is too much really as Samsonov. And the other conversation I'm hearing a lot, which makes no sense to me, is Joseph Woll's so young. Why put him in when this team is ready to win a Stanley Cup? How many, examples in recent memory have we got of teams with younger netminders that have gone a far, far away? I just don't know how you mature somebody and move them along if you don't play them in key pressure cooker type situations.
Well, so young, he's 24, right? So, like if he was 21 or 22, I understand that. Right? I think of a goalie that's making the rounds now in the rumor mill is Carter Hart. When Carter Hart came up to Philadelphia the first year, the Flyers wanted to be patient with Carter Hart. They wanted him to mature in the American League and to develop. They had to force him into Philadelphia because of all the injuries that they had with their netminders the first year, and he did really well. Now, looking back, you may think, well, okay, maybe he would have had a different development plan, but who knows, right? You deal with what you've got in front of you and you try to make it work. Joseph Woll is 24 years old. So to me, that's not, oh, he's still young and needs time in the American League. No, it's time to see what you can do in the NHL because you're the backup for a year, maybe two. Now you're 26 years old. If you're that good and you're 26, it's number one. Like you're thinking, I want to be a number one goaltender. I want to lead a team to the playoffs. So, I think 21, 22 is very young. 24 is time to move on to the NHL.
You mentioned the goaltending carousel, and I think very similar to last offseason, it just predicts to be wild and chaotic and a couple names coming to the forefront. We'll start with Carter Hart. Would he make any sense at all if something doesn't work out with Samsonov, and assuming Joseph Woll is one of the two? Would you take a flyer? Would you go after a guy like Carter Hart?
I wouldn't. And listen, I think number one, the Flyers look to want a lot in return. So this is a goalie that's making just a shade under $4 million a year left with an RFA tag after that contract. So you do have a chance to extend or look at the longer term plan with Carter Hart. But he was really good coming into the league. Then he took a major dip and it got back better last year. Is this because of John Tortorella and the way that he plays, or he has a structure for his team to play in the defensive zone? A lot of block shots, a lot of covering the middle, a lot of shots from the outside. They're very standard, right? Their coverage is very standard. I played for Torts in New York.
Yeah.
Probably my best few years when I think of my performances, my save percentage, my goals against average. It was my last 3 years in my career. But at the same time, it was a much simpler game. So I think that Carter Hart benefited from that last year. But at the end of the day, I think he was a 907 save percentage. Like, it's not like he rocked a 925. So I wouldn't. The performances tell me no. The cost would tell me no. And also, look, there you got to do your homework, right? And see, okay, Carter Hart started really good, and then there was a big drop. Why was there a drop? He's very technical. He's very structured. Goalies now that are structured and technical like that have to be big. Connor Hellebuck is structured and technical. He's not athletic and acrobatic and exciting like Vasilevsky or Shesterkin or UC Soros, right? Frederick Anderson, you guys know him well in Toronto, but he's very big. He can play the standard structured game. Carter Hart is not very big, in my opinion, when compared to all the goalies around. So that could be a problem as well. So you got to do your homework. Why did the play drop? When did it happen? And what would it look like with your team? I wouldn't do it if I was the Leafs.
Bottom line, Marty, I think it has to be an upgrade, and that's where Connor Hellebuck enters the chat. 1 year away from UFA, that's a guy I would sniff around on. I think if you're the Maple Leafs and you want to upgrade and you want to get a Vezina caliber goaltender, that's your guy, but the price tag is going to be something to look at too, right?
The price tag is going to be expensive, not when it comes to cap number, because he's just a shade over $6 million, which I think the Leafs could make that work. And you would get a really good goalie for a year. Now, again, you'd have to find a suitor for Ilya Samsonov, but with the year that he had and the goalie market, the way that it's going to be this summer, I think you could make a transaction for Samsonov. You could probably send Samsonov to Winnipeg and something else and get Connor Hellebuck in return. I think that it probably would work that way. I think Connor Hellebuck is going to be high on people's list this summer. He's extremely good. He can play a lot of games. One of the goalie that has played the most games, most minutes, seen the most shots over the last recent years. So I think that you can know that durability and reliability is going to be good with Connor Hellebuck. So he's on the top of my list of guys that I could see on the trade market. UC Soros is also on the top of my list of guys that I could see on the trade market. If Barry Trotz and the Nashville Predators are like, you know what, we can move up Askarov, who was in Milwaukee last year. He's a very, very high-end talent as a prospect, and Kevin Lankinen played well last year. So how do you balance that, seeing what you could get in return for UC Soros? Apparently there was some rumors last year, and maybe it's going to intensify again this summer. So those are the two trade targets at the top of my list.
Yeah, I think ideally Saros would be the guy everybody wants, but again, price tag's going to be massive. Having said that, we talked about the draft. How many times has a team hosting the draft want to do something big? We even saw it last year in Montreal, right?
Yep. Oh yeah. You see Montreal picking Slavkovsky last year. The host team always looking to do something big, but usually it's adding a big piece.
Yeah.
UC Soros is so popular in Nashville that I think you do that like on June 30th. You don't do it on the 28th or the 29th. You wait after the draft and then you pull the plug on that, because you may get booed when you get up to announce your pick in Nashville if you trade UC Soros.
It's just incredible. They had Rene, they have Saros, now Askarov coming. It's just been a goaltending factory.
Even before that, it's been Mike Dunham, Thomas Vokoun, even Chris Mason and Dan Ellis played really well. Like it has been a goalie gold mine for years in Nashville. I don't know if it's in the water. I know before that, I would kind of say Mitch Korn, right? Mitch Korn was the goalie guru with the Nashville Predators alongside Barry Trotz, right, for all these years. And he did a fantastic job. And then he went to Washington with Barry Trotz. And then he went to the Islanders with Barry Trotz. And you look at the track record. Everywhere they've been, everywhere Mitch Korn's been, there's been good goaltenders. Oh, wait a second. Before that, he was in Buffalo with Dominik Hasek. Like that just, makes it happen.
It's pretty damn good. As a former goaltender in this league, I'd love to get your general philosophy and has it changed when it comes to netminders? Like coming in, I talked about the fact that Aiden Hill, if we were to talk about this guy a year ago, it's like, holy shit, look where he is now, right? He's 2 wins away from winning a Stanley Cup. Has your philosophy changed in terms of how teams should handicap their crease, knowing what we've seen the last couple of years with guys like Holtby and Binnington? I know Vasilevsky's maybe the exception, even Darcy Kemper last year. Like, should teams go cheap in between the pipes?
No, teams should not go cheap. Look, paying a goalie $3 million, $4 million is not the 7, 8, 9, 10, but you could still get a lot of good performances from a $3, $4 million player or goaltender as long as they play well. Like, you know, you've got 100 goalies that played in the NHL this year. Really, technically, you got 64 goalies when you look at 2 goalies per team. If you have a goalie that's ranked 20th or worst when you look at goal save above expectations and all of that and the advanced metrics, like, it's tough to win. So I pulled the numbers, right? The last 5 Stanley Cup finals, okay, there was only 3 goaltenders that were outside of the top 20 when it comes to goal save above expectations. And those 3 goalies were Carey Price in 2021. Well, it's Carey Price. Like, I don't care if he's 50th in goal save above expectation that year. He can always turn it on in the playoffs. Tuukka Rask in 2019, same thing with Tuukka Rask, and Holtby in 18. But if we remember, Braden Holtby did not start the 18 playoffs. There's Philip Grubauer, and then Holtby took over. So those are the only 3 goalies in the last 5 years that were worse than 20th in goal save above expectation. Other than that, it's been Vasilevsky last year was 5th. Kemper was 7th. Vasilevsky was 4th the year before. 13th. Hudobin was 3rd. Binnington was 11th. Fleury was 11th. Like, they're all goalies that have performed. So usually when they're older and they've had the performances, they're getting paid. So that's why you pay goaltenders, and that's why usually the more established goaltenders are the one that gets the result.